Now, wait a second. Start again. Aren't you going to ask me a question?
You started or created a field called Mind Genomics. Well, how did you start it? What was the idea? What can you do with it? Right? How is it used? Right? Where would you like it to go?
Well, that's really a very interesting set of questions, Steve. And rather than giving you a pontificating answer, let me tell you the story of how all of this started. Period. It did not start with a rational desire to understand and to do things better. Rather, put yourself back to 1965, approximately November 1965, just about 56 years ago this week. I was a student at Harvard University, a first-year graduate student, and I was taking a course with Professor Roger N. Shepard, now of Stanford University, but then a 36-year-old full professor who had come out of Bell Laboratories. His interest was measurement, mathematical, psychological measurement. And he introduced us to this rather arcane paper by two professional statisticians, one of whom was a psychologist. The paper was called Conjoint Measurement, a new form of fundamental measurement, period. I say period because I have to stop there and think for a second. It was a little arcane, or really I should say very arcane, but the idea turned out to be measuring things when they are combined with each other rather than measuring things alone. I didn't have any idea of the fact that this would play an important role in my life, but it was interesting because, in fact, we don't really measure single ideas. Rather, we're confronted by a world of mixtures, of combinations. Just try driving down a street, and you'll see a melange of houses, of roads, of trees, an occasional fire hydrant, a variety of kids playing indifferently in the middle of the street until their mothers come, leaves on the ground, and that's just the beginning. And yet somehow we negotiate our way through that. That image stuck in my mind. And I said, that's pretty much the way we respond to the real world. It's not that we isolate the trees or the road and study it with absolute precision the way we're taught that scientists really do that, but we study things as mixtures, and we negotiate these mixtures, and we get through the world. I said, why can't we do this for things like food? And then I said, why can't we learn how to do this? And instead of just looking at the mixtures that nature presents us, test out mixtures of ideas. And once we do that, figure out what ideas really do. How do they score the separate ideas? And that's how I created Mind Genomics. I said, why not learn about the ideas from studying the mixtures? Now you're going to say to yourself, that's very interesting. It sounds very theoretical, and of course something that anybody from Harvard would do, because you could publish scientific papers. However, now take yourself from November 1965 to June or so 1980, a mere 42 and a half years ago. And imagine you're Howard Moskowitz, and you've long passed Harvard, and you're into a job, and you get a call from a man named Court Shepard. And Court Shepard happens to be the managing director or the boss of Colgate Canada. And he calls up and he says, I've heard that you have this method that you're using in science. Do you think you can tell me from your method what I should say about Colgate dental cream to the Canadian consumer to increase their acceptance and purchase of this product? You could have pulled me off the floor. I practically plotzed in my seat, sitting there getting this telephone call. It was the most remarkable thing. Here was the head of Colgate Canada saying, can you apply your science to tell us what to say? Because our regular methods of scoring each message individually does not work. And so I did that. And in fact, we increased the sales by 5 or 6%, which isn't bad for Colgate dental cream. Now it's in Canada, so you can say Canada doesn't count. Well, it's only 24 to 30 million people. But it was still very good. Come back now a bunch of years, and I'm starting to do this. And I said, why not apply this in medicine? And we were able to do the same thing. Again, St. Mary's Hospital in Rome, Amsterdam, New York. And there the question was, can you use this to figure out the messages that people need to hear in order to not come back to the hospital? It sounds a little crazy, but the word is compliance. How do you get people to comply? The regular methods of asking simple questions did not work. Perhaps we could make these combinations of messages up in this conjoint way, give it to people, get their reactions, and figure out the messages which are most driving, period. Well, we did that, and we figured out through this method what were the most driving messages. And as a consequence, we were able to reduce the readmissions from 17% to less than 5%. So that was the origin of it. A series of business, social, medical successes that were easy to do and that showed that one could really measure the inside of the mind and put numbers on perceptions and actually show real-world powerful results.